Okay, so here we want to differentiate the function. Before we differentiate the function, let's go ahead and rewrite this in a form that we can kind of make this a little bit easier on ourselves. So we have y, which is equal to, let's say, 6x squared plus 8x plus 4. And that's over x to the 1/2. Okay? And so then what we can do is we can say y is equal to the quantity of 6x squared plus 8x plus 4 times x to the negative 1/2. So now again, we can rewrite this up in the numerator as a negative exponent, and now we're going to distribute it to each one of these terms. Before we do that, if we distribute x to the negative 1/2 times x to the second power, let's go ahead and do that. So if we have x squared times x to the negative 1/2, well, that's the same thing as saying x to the 4 over 2 times x to the negative 1/2. Now remember, when you multiply with the same base, you add your exponents, which gives you x to the 3/2. So that means over here, y is going to equal 6x to the 3/2 when we distribute that. Okay. Next, if we take the x and then multiply that by x to the negative 1/2, well, that's the same thing as saying x to the 2 over 2 times x to the negative 1 over 2. And again, when you multiply the same base, you add your exponents, so that becomes x to the 1/2. So this becomes plus 8x to the positive 1/2. And then distributing this to the next term, we get plus 4x to the negative 1/2. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and then look at this and take the derivative of this function. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the derivative of this function. So to find the derivative of y equals 6x to the 3/2 plus 8x to the 1/2 plus 4x to the negative 1/2. Okay, well, what do we know here? Well, to find the derivative, then we're going to take 6, okay, and then that's going to be times 3 over 2 x to the 3 over 2 minus 1. Well, that's the same thing as 1 is 2 over 2. Plus, this is going to be 8 times 1/2 x to the 1/2 minus 1, which again can be written as 2 over 2, plus 4 times negative 1/2 x to the negative 1/2, and again minus 1, which is minus 2 over 2. Okay, so now when we multiply this all out, we know that 6 times 3, which is 18, divided by 2, which gives us 9. And this is going to be x to the positive 1/2. Plus 8 times 1/2 is going to give us 4. X, and negative 1 as positive 1/2 minus 2 over 2 is negative 1/2. And then plus, actually it's not plus, that's going to be a minus, because 4 times negative 1/2 is going to give us minus 2, and this is going to be x to the negative 3 over 2. Okay, now if we wanted to write an extra step here, we have y prime, which is equal to 9x to the 1/2 plus 4 over x to the positive 1/2 minus 2 over x to the positive 3/2. Okay, and so what we want to do is we're going to go back to the original function and make sure that we have now radicals. So we have y prime, which is going to equal 9 times the square root of x plus 4 times the square root of x minus 2. Now recall, if we have x to the 3/2, okay, that means the same thing as the square root of x cubed, which can then be applied as the following. This would be the square root of x squared times the square root of x, which is then x times the square root of x. So now we can place in the denominator x times the square root of x. Okay, now as you can see, this is the answer to the derivative, but if we want to simplify this a little further, we want to make sure that we can write this all as one term. In order to do that, we're going to have to find a common denominator. Well, if we want to find a common denominator, the common denominator is the following. It's going to be x times the square root of x plus x times the square root of x minus x times the square root of x. So what do we need to multiply by this denominator to get x times the square root of x? Well, we need to multiply this by x times the square root of x, which means we need to multiply this by x times the square root of x. So in the numerator, we have 9 times x times the square root of x squared, plus over here we need to multiply this by an x and this times x, so this is going to give us 4x. And then here we're just multiplying it by 1, so 2 times 1 is going to give us 2. So now let's go ahead and simplify it a little further. So we have y prime, okay, well in this case here we can simplify this x and this x. So now let's combine that numerator. So we have y prime 9x times the square root of x squared. Well, the square root of x squared is x, and x times x is x squared, so we have 9x squared plus 4x minus 2 divided by x times the square root of x, and therefore that would be the derivative of that function.